Bears attacked at this home in the forest. What this human baby did put everyone in tears. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The forest whispered secrets as twilight descended on the small clearing. Nestled between ancient pines and surrounded by a carpet of wild ferns stood the Harper family's timber cabin. Amber light spilled from the windows, creating golden pools on the mossy ground outside. Inside, Grace Harper hummed softly as she rocked her 14-month-old daughter, Lily, to sleep. "Look at her, Noah," Grace whispered to her husband, who was stoking the fire. "She's finally drifting off." Noah Harper straightened his tall frame and pushed a lock of dark hair from his forehead. His tired eyes softened as he gazed at his daughter's peaceful face. "Our little forest sprite," he murmured, leaning down to kiss Lily's forehead. Never seen a baby so in tune with nature. It was true. Since moving to their secluded cabin 6 months ago, leaving behind the chaos of city life, Lily had thrived in ways that astonished them. She would sit for hours by the large bay window, transfixed by the wildlife that ventured near their home, especially the family of black bears that frequented the berry bushes at the edge of their property. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Grace asked, not for the first time. Her fingers traced the soft curve of Lily's cheek. "Moving so far from everything?" Noah's answer was interrupted by a familiar sound. The deep, rumbling grunt of Mama Bear, as they'd come to call her. The massive black bear and her 2 cubs had become regular visitors, keeping a respectful distance but clearly aware of the human family that shared their forest. "There she is again," Noah said, moving to the window. "Right on schedule." Grace joined him, Lily still nestled in her arms. Through the glass, they watched the mother bear guide her cubs toward the blackberry thicket. The evening ritual had become a source of quiet joy for the family, this peaceful coexistence with the wild. But tonight was different. As they watched, Noah's body suddenly tensed. "What are those?" he hissed, pointing to moving shadows at the forest's edge. 4 figures emerged from the trees, moving with purpose toward the bears. Even in the fading light, the glint of metal was unmistakable. "Are those guns?" Grace's voice cracked with alarm. Noah's face hardened. "Poachers! They're not supposed to be here. This area is protected." He grabbed his jacket from the hook by the door. "Call the ranger station, now." Grace clutched Lily tighter. "Noah, don't go out there. They're armed." But Noah was already pulling on his boots. "I can't just watch. Those cubs are practically babies themselves." His eyes met Grace's, and she saw the determination there. "I'll stay hidden, just make noise to scare them off. The bears deserve a chance to escape." Before Grace could argue further, a sharp crack split the air, a warning shot. The mother bear reared up on her hind legs, her roar of defiance echoing through the trees. Her cubs scrambled behind her, confused and frightened. Noah bolted out the door. Grace rushed to the phone, but the line was dead. The storm from the night before must have damaged the connection again. Panic rose in her throat as she watched her husband sprint toward the confrontation, armed with nothing but a flashlight and his booming voice. From her arms, Lily suddenly stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, eyes that somehow held wisdom beyond her months. The baby's gaze fixed on the scene outside the window, on the bears now backed against the forest's edge, on the mother's desperate attempt to shield her young. And then Lily began to cry, not the standard wail of an infant, but something different, something that sent chills down Grace's spine. It was as if the baby understood exactly what was happening. Another shot rang out, and the mother bear stumbled. Noah's voice carried across the clearing, shouting at the poachers to stop. One of the men turned toward him, raising his weapon. Grace's world narrowed to a pinpoint of terror. And in that moment of paralyzing fear, something impossible happened. Lily squirmed with surprising strength, nearly tumbling from her mother's arms. Her cries intensified, changing pitch until they sounded eerily like the distressed calls of the bear cubs outside. Grace stared down at her daughter in shock as Lily's tiny hands reached desperately toward the window, toward the threatened family of bears, toward her father now in danger. Something ancient and primal stirred in the cabin's shadowy corners, something that belonged to the forest itself. The air seemed to thicken with anticipation, as if the very woods were holding their breath. No one, not even the armed poachers, could have predicted what would happen next. The forest seemed to hold its breath as the confrontation unfolded. The four poachers, rough men with weathered faces and cold eyes, had formed a loose semicircle around the bears. Their leader, a tall man with a jagged scar running down his left cheek, gestured angrily at Noah. "This ain't your business, friend," he called out, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. "Walk back to your cabin and forget what you saw." Noah stood his ground, his flashlight beam cutting through the gathering darkness. "This is protected land," he shouted back. "Those bears are part of a conservation study. The rangers know they're here." The scarred man spat on the ground. "Rangers ain't here now, are they? Bear pelts fetch good money, and those cubs will bring even more from private collectors." He raised his rifle slightly. Last warning. Inside the cabin, Grace clutched Lily to her chest, her heart hammering against her ribs. She needed to do something, anything. But leaving Lily alone was unthinkable, and taking her into danger was worse. Lily's strange crying continued, her little body rigid with tension. Her eyes, usually a soft blue-gray like her father's, seemed to shimmer with an unusual golden light in the cabin's dim illumination. Grace told herself it must be a reflection from the fireplace, but deep down, she knew it was something else. "What is it, Lily?" Grace whispered, her voice trembling. "What are you trying to tell me?" Outside, the mother bear was growing desperate. One of her cubs had been injured by the warning shot, its small body shaking as it pressed against her massive form. The second cub pawed anxiously at its mother's fur, whimpering in fear. The mother bear's eyes darted between her threatened young and the approaching humans, torn between attack and retreat. Noah took another step forward, his hands raised in a placating gesture. "Listen to me," he called to the poachers. "That mother will fight to the death for her cubs. Someone's going to get seriously hurt here." The scarred man laughed, a hollow sound devoid of humor. "That's why we shoot the mama first," he said, raising his rifle to his shoulder and taking aim. Time seemed to slow. Grace screamed from the window, the sound muffled by the glass. Noah lunged forward, knowing he wouldn't reach the man in time. The mother bear rose to her full height, 7 feet of pure protective fury, her roar shaking the very air. And then Lily wrenched herself from Grace's arms with impossible strength. She fell to the wooden floor with a soft thud, and before Grace could snatch her up, the baby began to crawl toward the door that Noah had left ajar in his haste. Grace lunged after her daughter, but her foot caught on the edge of the rug, sending her sprawling. By the time she scrambled to her feet, Lily had somehow pushed through the gap and was outside on the porch. "Lily!" Grace's scream tore through the clearing, freezing everyone in place. The baby, impossibly, inexplicably, pulled herself to her feet at the edge of the porch steps. She had only been walking for a few weeks, still unsteady on her tiny legs, but now she stood with unusual stability, her little chest heaving. And then Lily did something that would haunt everyone who witnessed it for the rest of their lives. She opened her mouth and released a sound that was not human. A perfect imitation of a bear cub's distress call, but layered with something ancient, something that spoke to the primal parts of every mind present. It echoed through the trees, causing birds to take flight and small creatures to scurry for cover. The poachers turned toward the sound, their expressions shifting from confusion to unease. The scarred leader lowered his rifle slightly, his brow furrowed. "What the hell?" one of the younger poachers muttered, taking an involuntary step backward. Noah stood rooted to the spot, unable to process what he was hearing from his infant daughter. Grace finally reached the porch, but something stopped her from snatching Lily up, some instinct that told her to wait, to watch. The mother bear swung her massive head toward Lily, nostrils flaring. The wounded cub whimpered, and its sibling pressed closer to their mother's side. For a long, tense moment, the tableau held. Armed men, threatened bears, a man caught in between, and a baby somehow communicating with the wilderness itself. Then Lily took a wobbly step down from the porch. Another. Each step more confident than should have been possible for a child her age. Her little face was wet with tears, but her eyes were fixed on the injured bear cub with an expression of pure empathy that belonged on someone decades older. "Stop her," the scarred man hissed to his companions. "Grab the kid before that mama bear tears her apart." But none of the men moved. There was something unnatural about the scene before them, something that triggered ancient superstitions and buried fears. As Noah began to edge slowly toward his daughter, a movement at the forest's edge caught everyone's attention. Shadows shifted between the trees, many shadows moving with purpose. Yellow eyes gleamed in the gathering darkness, appearing and disappearing between the trunks. "Boss," one of the poachers said, his voice cracking, "we got company." From the undergrowth emerged wolves, a pack of gray timber wolves, their fur silvered in the fading light. They came silently, at least a dozen strong, arranging themselves in a loose formation at the edge of the clearing. They made no move to attack, but their presence was unmistakable and unprecedented. Wolves and bears were natural enemies, rarely seen in such proximity without conflict. Yet here they stood, as if summoned, as if waiting. The scarred man raised his rifle again, swinging it toward the new threat, but his hands were visibly shaking now. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice higher than before. "What the hell is going on?" Lily continued her slow, determined journey across the clearing. Noah matched her pace, staying close but not interfering, his paternal instincts warring with the certainty that he was witnessing something beyond ordinary understanding. The injured bear cub mewed softly as Lily approached. The mother bear huffed and pawed the ground, torn between protecting her young and the strange pull she seemed to feel toward the human child. "Lily," Noah called softly. "Honey, stop. Please stop." But Lily didn't stop. 10 feet from the bears, 5 feet, 3 feet. The distance closed with each tiny step. The mother bear's muscles bunched, ready to charge if necessary, but something held her back. Grace had made her way off the porch now, moving in a wide arc to approach from another angle, her mother's heart pounding with terror and wonder in equal measure. And then, as the last rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, Lily Harper reached the injured bear cub. The clearing fell utterly silent. Even the forest sounds dampened as if nature itself was holding its breath. Lily sank to her knees beside the trembling cub. Her tiny hand, so fragile, so human, reached out and came to rest on the cub's head. The connection was immediate and visible. A subtle vibration seemed to pass between child and cub, a shimmer in the air like heat rising from summer-baked earth. The cub's whimpering stopped. The mother bear lowered her massive head, watching with eyes that reflected a consciousness deeper than instinct. The poachers stared in disbelief. The wolf pack remained stationary, sentinel-like at the forest's edge. Noah and Grace found themselves standing side by side, witnesses to something they could neither understand nor deny. "She's healing it," Noah whispered, the words feeling strange on his tongue. Indeed, where Lily's hand rested on the cub's wounded flank, the torn fur was knitting together. The small trickle of blood had stopped. The cub's breathing, previously rapid and shallow, steadied. One of the poachers, the youngest, barely out of his teens, suddenly dropped to his knees. His rifle clattered to the ground beside him. "It's her," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Just like my grandmother's stories. The spirit child." The scarred leader turned on him furiously. "Shut your mouth with that superstitious nonsense." But the young man continued, his eyes never leaving Lily. "The one who comes when the balance is broken, the one who speaks to both worlds." Tears streaked down his dirt-smudged face. "My grandmother was Abenaki. She told me if I ever saw such a child, I should beg forgiveness for my crimes against the forest." As if in response to his words, a low rumble began to build, not from the bears or wolves, but from the earth itself. It was subtle at first, a vibration beneath their feet, but it grew steadily stronger. The trees swayed, though there was no wind. Loose stones clattered together on the ground. The scarred man raised his rifle once more, panic replacing his previous confidence. "I don't know what trick this is," he snarled, "but I'm ending it now." He took aim at the mother bear, his finger tightening on the trigger. Noah shouted and lunged toward him. Grace screamed her daughter's name, but before any of them could act, the forest floor erupted. Roots, massive, gnarled tree roots, burst from the earth in a circle around the clearing. They writhed like serpents, cracking the soil and reaching skyward before arching back down. More roots followed, weaving together, forming a living barrier between the poachers and their targets. The scarred man fired in panic, but his bullet lodged harmlessly in the woody barrier. The other poachers broke and ran, dropping their weapons as they fled toward the path that had brought them into the forest. The roots parted to let them pass, then sealed again behind them. Only the scarred leader and the kneeling young man remained. The leader beat at the root wall with the butt of his rifle, cursing wildly. The young man remained motionless, tears flowing freely now. At the center of it all, Lily continued her healing touch. The injured cub had risen to its feet now, nuzzling against her small form with obvious affection. The mother bear had relaxed her defensive posture, sitting back on her haunches to observe with what could only be described as wonder. One by one, the wolves approached. Not with aggression, but with what appeared to be reverence. They formed a circle around Lily and the bears, their tails low, ears forward in peaceful greeting. "Noah," Grace whispered, clutching her husband's arm. "What's happening to our daughter?" Noah shook his head slowly, unable to form words for the impossible scene before them. The golden light in Lily's eyes had spread, a gentle aura that surrounded her small body and extended to encompass the bears as well. The rumbling beneath their feet subsided gradually. The massive roots settled, still forming an impenetrable barrier around the scarred poacher but otherwise subsiding back into the earth. Leaves and pine needles drifted down in the aftermath, covering the freshly turned soil. Lily finally looked up at her parents. Her face, her perfectly normal baby face, broke into a wide, toothy smile. "Mama," she said clearly, her first word, spoken in this most extraordinary of moments. "Dada." The wounded cub was fully healed now, bouncing playfully around Lily as if they were longtime playmates. The mother bear huffed softly, a sound almost like a sigh of relief. The second cub ventured forward hesitantly, then joined its sibling in gentle play with the human child. The young poacher spoke again, his voice steadier now. "The spirit child comes when the forest's heart is threatened," he said. "My grandmother said such children are born only once in many generations. They carry the old magic, the connection between humanity and the wild that we've forgotten." He looked up at Noah and Grace with tear-filled eyes. "Your daughter has been chosen." From his isolated position behind the root barrier, the scarred leader had fallen silent, his face pale as he watched the unfolding scene. Grace stepped forward cautiously, approaching her daughter and the wild animals that now treated her like one of their own. "Lily," she called softly. "Lily, honey, it's Mama." Lily turned, her smile widening. The golden light in her eyes was fading now, returning to their normal blue-gray. She patted the healed cub once more, then rose unsteadily to her feet and took several wobbly steps toward her mother, once again moving like the toddler she was, the preternatural Grace temporarily gone. Grace scooped her up, pressing her face into Lily's soft curls, breathing in her baby scent. "My little miracle," she whispered, voice breaking with emotion. Noah joined them, enfolding both in his arms, his shoulders shaking with suppressed sobs. Over Grace's shoulder, he watched as the mother bear gathered her cubs with gentle nudges, preparing to return to the forest depths. Before she left, the massive creature turned and met Noah's gaze directly. In that moment of connection, Noah understood something fundamental had shifted in their relationship with this forest, with these creatures, with the natural world itself. They were no longer simply residents. They were guardians now, bound by their daughter's extraordinary gift. The mother bear dipped her head once, an unmistakable gesture of acknowledgement, before shepherding her cubs into the trees. The wolves followed, melting into the shadows one by one until only their eyes could be seen, yellow pinpricks in the gathering darkness. "What do we do about him?" Grace asked quietly, nodding toward the scarred man still trapped behind the root barrier. He had given up his attempts to break free and now sat with his back against the woody wall, rifle discarded beside him. Before Noah could answer, the young poacher approached them, head bowed. "I'll take responsibility for him," he said. "I'll make sure he faces justice for what he tried to do here." He looked up, meeting their eyes with newfound determination. "And I'll make amends for my own part in this. The forest has shown me a different path tonight." As if in response to his words, the root barrier began to recede, sinking slowly back into the earth. The scarred man made no attempt to flee or resist, as the young poacher retrieved both their rifles and gestured for his former leader to stand. "You should go," Noah told the young man. "Take the forest path to the ranger station 5 miles north. Tell them what happened, what really happened, with the poaching. But—" he glanced at Lily, now drowsing against Grace's shoulder, completely ordinary once more. "The rest of it stays here, with us." The young man nodded in understanding. "Some truths belong to the forest," he said. Then he added, almost shyly, "My name is Thomas Redfeather. If you ever need help protecting your daughter, or this place, you can find me in the settlement beyond the northern ridge." With that, he guided the subdued, scarred man toward the path, disappearing into the twilight shadows that now blanketed the forest. Noah and Grace stood in their clearing, the extraordinary events of the evening settling around them like the gentle fall of night. Their home seemed different now. Not just a cabin in the woods, but a sanctuary, a threshold between worlds. "We need to talk about what this means," Noah said softly, stroking Lily's curls as she drifted toward sleep in Grace's arms. "About what she is." Grace nodded, her eyes reflecting the first emerging stars above. "Tomorrow," she said. "Tonight, let's just be grateful we're all safe." She looked out toward where the bears had vanished into the trees. All of us. As they turned to walk back to their cabin, neither noticed the small green shoots already sprouting from the disturbed soil where Lily had knelt. Tiny saplings that had not been there before, growing at an impossible rate. By morning, they would stand waist-high, forming a perfect circle to mark the spot where a baby's compassion had awakened ancient magic and changed the forest forever. Inside the cabin, as Grace laid Lily in her crib, the baby's eyes fluttered open one last time before sleep claimed her. For just a moment they gleamed golden in the firelight, a brief reminder of the miracle they had witnessed and a promise of wonders yet to come. Dawn broke over the forest with unusual brilliance the next morning. Sunlight filtered through the trees in shafts that seemed almost solid, illuminating the clearing around the Harper cabin in a way that made ordinary things look enchanted. Noah stood on the porch, coffee mug clutched in his hand, surveying the changed landscape before him. Where Lily had knelt to heal the injured bear cub, a perfect circle of new growth had sprouted overnight. Saplings already shoulder-high, their leaves a vibrant green that almost seemed to glow from within. Wildflowers never before seen in this part of the forest bloomed between them, their petals iridescent in the morning light. "It wasn't a dream," he whispered to himself, taking an unsteady sip of his coffee. Behind him, the cabin door creaked open. Grace stepped out, Lily balanced on her hip. The baby looked completely normal this morning, rosy-cheeked, bright-eyed, babbling happily as she reached for her father. "She slept through the night," Grace said, her voice tinged with wonder. "First time ever." Noah set his mug down on the porch railing and took Lily into his arms. He studied her face closely, searching for any lingering signs of the otherworldly child who had stood between armed men and wild bears just hours before. But all he saw was his daughter, his perfectly ordinary, extraordinary daughter. "What do we do now?" he asked, bouncing Lily gently as she grabbed at his beard with delighted fingers. Grace leaned against the porch railing, her eyes fixed on the circle of new growth. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I think we need to learn more about what Thomas said, about spirit children and the old stories. Maybe there are others who know about this gift." Noah nodded slowly. "The reservation isn't far. We could—" He broke off, as movement at the forest edge caught his attention. A man was emerging from the trees. Tall, broad-shouldered, with silver-streaked black hair hanging in two braids beside a weathered face. He wore modern clothing, jeans, flannel shirt, sturdy boots, but carried himself with a dignity that seemed to belong to another time. As he approached, Noah noticed he walked with a slight limp, favoring his right leg. "That's close enough," Noah called when the stranger was about 20 yards from the porch. He handed Lily back to Grace, who retreated slightly toward the cabin door. After the previous night's events, they weren't taking chances with unexpected visitors. The man stopped, raising his hands to show they were empty. "I mean no harm to you or your family," he said, his voice deep and resonant. "I am Daniel Redfeather. My grandson Thomas sent me." Noah and Grace exchanged a glance. "That was quick," Noah said. A hint of a smile touched Daniel's lined face. "News travels fast in certain circles. May I approach? There is much we need to discuss." Noah hesitated, then nodded. As Daniel crossed the remaining distance, Noah noticed how the man's eyes kept returning to Lily, watching her with an expression that mingled reverence with concern. Thomas told me what happened here, Daniel said when he reached the porch steps, about your daughter and what she did. I had to see for myself. His gaze shifted to the circle of new growth. And now I have. You know what this means? Grace asked, instinctively holding Lily a little tighter. What she is. Daniel nodded solemnly. May I sit with you? This is not a brief conversation. Minutes later, they were seated around the kitchen table. Grace had prepared tea, which Daniel accepted with a nod of thanks. Lily sat in her high chair, contentedly mashing bits of banana between her fingers and occasionally offering some to the adults with a generous, if messy, gesture. In my people's tradition, Daniel began, there are stories of children born with the spirits of the forest inside them. They appear rarely, only when the balance between humans and nature has been severely disrupted. They are bridges between worlds, healing presence in times of great need. He sipped his tea, his eyes never leaving Lily. The last such child among our people was born nearly 100 years ago, during a time of great logging and destruction in these forests. The child, a boy, died young, but not before he had drawn together the human and natural worlds in a new covenant that protected much of what you see today. Grace paled. Died young? What do you mean? Daniel's face softened with compassion. The gift is not without cost. Such children burn brightly but briefly. Their connection to the natural world is so strong that it consumes them. Noah's hand found Grace's under the table, squeezing tightly. How briefly? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Daniel set down his cup. That depends on how much the gift is used. Each time your daughter calls on the deep magic of the forest, it draws from her life force. Small healings, like what she did for the bear cub, might cost her days. Larger interventions, more. A heavy silence fell over the kitchen, broken only by Lily's happy babbling as she discovered she could stick banana to the tray of her high chair. So we just don't let her use it, Grace said finally, her voice tight with determination. We keep her away from situations where she might feel compelled to help. We can homeschool her, limit her contact with wildlife. I'm afraid it's not that simple, Daniel interrupted gently. The gift is part of who she is now. It will emerge whether you wish it to or not, especially as she grows and becomes more aware of her connection to the forest. And he hesitated, choosing his words carefully. There are those who would seek to use such power for their own ends. Noah frowned. What do you mean? There are always those who see power as something to be harnessed, controlled, exploited, Daniel replied. If word spreads about what your daughter can do, and it will spread, despite your best efforts to keep it quiet, she will become a target. Not just for the curious or the desperate seeking healing, but for those with darker ambitions. As if to punctuate his words, a distant sound reached them, the mechanical growl of engines approaching along the forest road. Daniel tensed. Are you expecting visitors? Noah shook his head, rising from his chair to peer out the window. No one comes this way except the rangers, and they're not due for another week. Through the trees, he could see dust rising from the rarely used forest road, and then the glint of metal as two black SUVs rounded the bend and began approaching the cabin. Get Lily to the back room, Noah said tersely to Grace. Daniel, who are they? The older man moved to the window, his face grim as he watched the vehicles draw closer. I cannot say for certain, but I know this. They are not friends of the forest. He turned to Noah, his expression grave. There is an organization, they call themselves the Horizon Institute, that has been researching phenomena like your daughter's gift for decades. They disguise themselves as scientists, conservationists, but their true goal is control. They seek to understand and harness any power that might give them advantage. "How would they know about Lily already?" Grace asked, clutching the baby to her chest. "It just happened last night." "The forest speaks in many ways," Daniel replied, "and those who have made it their business to listen for certain frequencies can hear much." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small leather pouch. "Take this. It contains sacred herbs that will mask your daughter's energy signature temporarily. It won't hide her completely, but it might buy us time." Noah took the pouch, eyeing it doubtfully, but tied it to Lily's wrist nonetheless. The baby immediately became fascinated with the tiny bundle, trying to put it in her mouth until Grace gently redirected her attention. "We need to leave," Daniel said urgently. "Now, before they reach the cabin. My truck is hidden off the main road about a quarter-mile through the woods, if we can reach it unseen." A sharp knock at the front door cut him off. All three adults froze, exchanging alarmed glances. "Mr. and Mrs. Harper," a woman's voice called from outside. "My name is Dr. Eleanor Vega from the Environmental Protection Agency. We're here about the incident that was reported last night. May we speak with you?" Noah and Grace looked to Daniel, who shook his head emphatically. "A lie," he mouthed silently. "Just a moment," Noah called, trying to keep his voice casual. He motioned for Grace to take Lily to the back room, then whispered urgently to Daniel, "Is there another way out?" "The back window in the bedroom," Daniel replied softly. "It opens onto the woods. If you can reach the stream that runs behind your property and follow it north for half a mile, you'll find a path marked with white stones. That will lead you to my truck." Noah nodded, his mind racing. "What about you?" Daniel's weathered face creased into a grim smile. "I will buy you time. Go now." Another knock at the door, more insistent this time. "Mr. Harper, it's quite important that we speak with you." Grace had already disappeared into the back bedroom with Lily. Noah hesitated, torn between helping Daniel and protecting his family. "Go," Daniel repeated firmly. "Your daughter is what matters now. She is the forest's heart." With a quick nod, Noah slipped after Grace, pausing only to grab his backpack from its hook by the kitchen door. Years of wilderness training had taught him to keep it stocked with essentials: water, food, first aid kit, map, compass, and other survival gear. He prayed it would be enough. In the bedroom, Grace was already easing the window open, Lily balanced on one hip. The baby was quiet, as if sensing the need for silence, her wide eyes solemn in her small face. "Daniel's staying behind," Noah whispered, joining them at the window. "We need to follow the stream north to find his truck." Grace nodded, her face pale but determined. "I heard. You go first. Then I'll hand you Lily." From the front of the cabin, they could hear the door opening, Daniel's voice raised in formal greeting. "I am Daniel Redfeather, elder of the Abenaki people. This is protected land under the Treaty of 1794. What business brings government agents here without prior notification?" Noah eased through the window, landing softly on the pine needle-covered ground outside. Grace passed Lily to him, then climbed through herself. As Noah settled the backpack on his shoulders and prepared to lift Lily again, a strange sound caught his attention. A soft growl directly behind them. He turned slowly, expecting to see the mother bear they had encountered the night before. Instead, he found himself face to face with a mountain lion, a massive cougar, its tawny fur gleaming in the dappled sunlight, its amber eyes fixed on them with unnerving intensity. Grace stifled a scream, pressing herself against the cabin wall. Noah instinctively placed himself between the predator and his family, though he knew he stood little chance against the powerful cat. But the cougar made no move to attack. Instead, it lowered its head slightly, then turned and took several steps toward the forest before looking back at them expectantly. "It wants us to follow," Noah realized aloud, the words sounding impossible even as he spoke them. In his arms, Lily giggled and reached toward the big cat, her eyes beginning to take on that strange golden glow they had witnessed the night before. "No, Lily," Grace whispered urgently. "Remember what Daniel said. It takes from your life." But the connection was already forming. The cougar's eyes had taken on the same golden sheen, creating a visible link between child and predator. The cat blinked slowly, then turned again toward the forest, its message clear: "Come." "We don't have a choice," Noah said, his voice tight. "If those people are who Daniel thinks they are, we need all the help we can get." Grace hesitated, then nodded, her face a mask of worry. "But we have to make her stop the glowing thing as soon as possible." They followed the cougar into the woods, moving as quietly as they could manage. Behind them, they could hear voices from the cabin, Daniel's deep tones contrasting with the woman's crisper, more authoritative speech. So far, it seemed their absence hadn't been discovered. The mountain lion led them on a winding path that no human trail followed, avoiding open areas and keeping to the densest parts of the forest. Noah realized it was deliberately choosing a route that would be difficult to track, moving over rocky outcroppings where they would leave no footprints, wading through shallow streams that would wash away their scent. Lily remained unnaturally calm in Noah's arms, her eyes fixed on their feline guide, the golden glow pulsing gently with each step the cougar took. Noah could feel a subtle warmth emanating from his daughter's small body. Not a fever, but something else, as if her skin contained sunlight. After 20 minutes of swift travel, the cougar brought them to a small clearing dominated by an enormous oak tree. The tree was ancient, its massive trunk gnarled and twisted with age, its branches spreading like protective arms over the space beneath. At its base, a tangle of exposed roots created natural hollows and caves, perfect for shelter. The mountain lion stopped at the edge of the clearing, looking back at them once more before melting into the undergrowth and disappearing from sight. "Where are we?" Grace asked, looking around in confusion. "This isn't the stream Daniel mentioned." Noah set Lily down carefully on a patch of soft moss, then consulted his compass. "We've been moving east, not north. The cat deliberately led us away from the direction Daniel suggested." Grace's eyes widened. "Do you think Daniel's directions were wrong? Or that he was one of them?" Noah shook his head firmly. "I believe Daniel is exactly who he says he is, but I think—" He glanced at Lily, who was now patting the moss with fascinated hands, the golden glow finally fading from her eyes. "I think she knows something we don't. Or the forest does through her." A sudden sound made them both freeze, the distant but unmistakable bark of dogs, tracking dogs. "They're following us," Grace whispered, fear evident in her voice. "And they have dogs. We'll never outrun them." Noah's mind raced. The oak tree offered some possibility of shelter, but not true escape. If the dogs picked up their scent, and they would, it was only a matter of time before they were discovered. But before he could formulate a plan, Lily began to crawl determinedly toward the great oak. Noah moved to pick her up, but Grace caught his arm. "Wait," she said softly. "Look." As Lily approached the oak, the massive tree seemed to shiver, though there was no wind. A patch of bark near the base, a patch that had appeared solid moments before, now revealed itself to be an opening, a hollow within the trunk itself. Lily reached the tree and disappeared into the dark opening without hesitation. "Lily!" Noah lunged forward, dropping to his knees to peer into the hollow. What he saw defied explanation. The inside of the tree was impossibly large, a space perhaps 10 feet across, illuminated by a soft, shifting light that seemed to emanate from the wood itself. Lily sat at its center, looking back at them with an expectant expression. "That's not possible," Grace breathed, kneeling beside Noah. "Neither is what happened last night," Noah replied. The barking of the dogs was growing louder. "I think this is our only option." Grace nodded, her face resolute. Together, they squeezed through the opening, one after the other, Noah going first, then helping Grace through. Inside, the air was cool and sweet-smelling, tinged with the scent of moss and earth and growing things. The walls of the hollow, if they could be called walls, pulsed gently with an inner light that reminded Noah of the glow in Lily's eyes. "What is this place?" Grace whispered, gathering Lily into her arms. Before Noah could attempt an answer, the opening through which they had entered sealed itself seamlessly, leaving no trace that it had ever existed. They were now enclosed completely within the heart of the ancient oak. Instead of feeling trapped, however, Noah was surprised to find himself experiencing a profound sense of safety, as if they had found sanctuary in the one place in the forest where no harm could reach them. Lily yawned widely, her eyes heavy with sudden sleepiness. The golden light that had surrounded her earlier was gone completely now, replaced by the normal flush of a healthy child. She nestled against Grace's chest, her thumb finding its way to her mouth as her eyelids drooped. "She's exhausted," Grace observed, stroking Lily's fine hair. "Whatever she did to bring us here, it took a lot out of her." Noah nodded, remembering Daniel's warning about the cost of Lily's gift. "Let her sleep," he said. "We should be safe here for now." As Lily drifted into slumber, the light within the hollow dimmed slightly, as if responding to her state. Noah and Grace settled against the curved inner wall of the tree, their shoulders touching, taking comfort in each other's presence. "What's happening to us, Noah?" Grace asked softly. 24 hours ago, our biggest worry was whether we had enough firewood stored for winter. Now we're fugitives, hiding inside a magical tree, with people hunting our baby because she can... What? Communicate with animals? Heal with a touch? Make plants grow? Noah took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I know this. Whatever Lily is, whatever she can do, we'll protect her. Not just because she's our daughter, but because..." He searched for the right words. "Because I think she's important. Not just to us, but to the forest, to the balance of things." Grace leaned her head against his shoulder. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Daniel said using her gift takes from her life. What if it's already shortened her time? What if..." "We can't think that way," Noah interrupted gently. "We'll find answers. Daniel will help us, if he can get away from those people. And if not him, then someone else who understands what's happening." Outside their wooden sanctuary, they could hear the muffled sounds of the dogs drawing closer, human voices calling back and forth. The search party was passing nearby, but the ancient oak kept them hidden, its magic, or whatever force protected them, holding strong. Exhaustion began to overtake them as well, the adrenaline of their escape giving way to bone-deep weariness. As their eyes grew heavy, the light within the hollow continued to dim, encouraging them toward rest. "Just for a little while," Noah murmured, his arm wrapping around Grace's shoulders. "We'll figure out what to do when we wake up." As they drifted towards sleep, neither noticed the tiny tendrils of golden light that had begun to extend from the walls of their sanctuary, reaching out to touch Lily's sleeping form. The tendrils connected with the child, creating a gentle web of light that enveloped all three of them. Within that web, time itself seemed to slow, creating a pocket of stillness in the chaos that swirled outside. And deep within the heart of the ancient oak, something stirred, an awareness that had slumbered for centuries, awakened by the presence of the child who carried the forest's heart within her human form. It watched over the sleeping family, this consciousness as old as the forest itself, and it began to remember its purpose. Beyond the boundaries of their sanctuary, the world was changing. The search for the child with golden eyes was only beginning. Time passed strangely within the heart of the ancient oak. Noah woke with a start, unsure if hours or days had elapsed. The interior of their wooden sanctuary remained bathed in the same gentle, pulsing light, neither brightening with day nor darkening with night to mark the passage of time. Grace and Lily still slept beside him, their breathing deep and even. Noah carefully extracted himself from their embrace and explored their unusual shelter more thoroughly. The space within the tree was roughly circular, the walls curved and smooth, with intricate patterns that resembled tree rings flowing across the surface. When he placed his palm against one section, he felt a rhythmic thrumming, almost like a heartbeat. "This isn't just a tree," he whispered to himself. "It's alive in a way I don't understand." As if responding to his words, a portion of the wall before him began to shift and change. The wooden surface became translucent, like amber held up to sunlight. Through this newly formed window, Noah could see the forest outside, but with a clarity and depth of detail that seemed impossible. He could make out individual droplets of dew on spider webs dozens of yards away, count the veins on leaves swaying in the breeze, spot the minute movements of insects traversing the forest floor, and he could see their pursuers. A group of 6 people combed the forest methodically, led by a woman whose bearing marked her as their leader. She was tall and slender, with silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. Even from this distance, Noah could see the intensity in her sharp features, the expression of someone both highly intelligent and utterly determined. Dogs strained at leashes, sniffing the ground where Noah, Grace, and Lily had walked just hours, or was it days before. But strangely, the animals showed signs of confusion, circling the same spots repeatedly, whining in frustration as if the scent trail simply vanished. A man in tactical gear approached the woman, gesturing with obvious frustration. Though no sound penetrated the oak's sanctuary, Noah could read the man's lips with supernatural clarity. "It's like they disappeared into thin air, Dr. Vega. The dogs lose the trail right around this area, every time." The woman, Dr. Vega, the same who had called herself an EPA representative at their cabin, surveyed the forest with narrowed eyes. For a heart-stopping moment, her gaze seemed to fix directly on the ancient oak, on the exact spot where Noah watched. He instinctively stepped back, though logic told him she couldn't possibly see him through the tree's magic. After a tense moment, she turned away, issuing what appeared to be new orders to her team. They spread out in a wider search pattern, moving gradually away from the oak's vicinity. The viewing window slowly became opaque again, returning to solid wood. Noah released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Noah?" Grace's voice came from behind him, thick with sleep. "How long have we been here?" He turned to find her sitting up, Lily still asleep in the crook of her arm. "I'm not sure," he admitted. "It's hard to tell in here, but our visitors are still searching the forest." Grace carefully shifted Lily to a moss-padded depression in the floor that formed a perfect cradle for the child's small body. She joined Noah by the wall that had been a window moments before. Any sign of Daniel? Noah shook his head. Nothing. Either they're holding him, or he managed to get away. Do you think he'd come looking for us? If he could find us, Noah said. But considering how that mountain lion led us here, and how the dogs can't pick up our trail, I'm not sure anyone could locate this place unless the forest wanted them to. The thought hung between them. The strange idea that the forest itself possessed agency, intention. After what they'd witnessed with Lily, it no longer seemed so far-fetched. As if summoned by their thoughts, a low rumbling began to emanate from the walls around them. The entire space vibrated gently, the light pulsing in a new rhythm, quicker, more urgent. "What's happening?" Grace whispered, instinctively moving back toward Lily's sleeping form. Before Noah could hazard a guess, a new opening appeared in the trunk. Not where they had entered, but on the opposite side. Light streamed through, natural sunlight, not the mysterious inner glow of their sanctuary. "I think," Noah said slowly, "the tree is telling us it's time to move." Grace gathered Lily, who stirred but didn't wake, her small face peaceful in sleep. "But those people are still out there." Noah peered cautiously through the new opening. It revealed a side of the forest he didn't recognize. Denser, older growth, with massive ferns creating a sea of green beneath towering conifers. No sign of humans or search parties disturbed the primal scene. "I don't think this opens to where we were before," he said, wonder creeping into his voice. "It's as if the tree connects to different parts of the forest." "Like a doorway?" Grace asked, joining him at the opening. "Or a network?" The pieces began to fall into place in Noah's mind. Remember all those stories of people getting lost in old forests, walking for hours only to find themselves back where they started? What if it wasn't just disorientation? What if the oldest trees are all connected somehow, creating pathways only certain people can access? The rumbling intensified slightly, as if in confirmation. And then, startlingly clear in Noah's mind, came words that were not his own. "Hurry, not safe. Follow the roots." He staggered backward, blinking in confusion. "Did you hear that?" Grace looked at him with concern. "Hear what?" "A voice." "No, not exactly a voice. More like—" He struggled to describe it. Thoughts that weren't mine. The opening in the trunk pulsed with light, the message unmistakable. This was their exit, and they needed to take it now. "We have to go," Noah decided, shouldering his backpack once more. "Whatever's happening, this tree or the forest or whatever force is at work here is trying to help us." Grace hesitated only briefly before nodding. Lily trusted it. "I guess we should too." They stepped through the opening together, emerging into the ancient section of forest Noah had glimpsed. The moment they cleared the threshold, the opening sealed behind them, the massive oak once again appearing solid and ordinary. If a tree so ancient and massive could ever be called ordinary. The air here smelled different, richer, wilder, untouched by human presence. Massive ferns reached to their waists, and the canopy overhead was so dense that the forest floor existed in a perpetual green twilight, sun filtering through in occasional dappled patches. "Where are we?" Grace whispered, shifting Lily's weight in her arms. The baby still slept, though her eyes moved rapidly beneath her lids, as if dreaming intensely. Noah consulted his compass, then frowned at the result. The needle spun erratically, unable to fix on magnetic north. "I'm not sure our usual rules of navigation apply here," he said finally, tucking the useless instrument away. The voice said to follow the roots. They both looked down. Beneath the carpet of ferns, a network of massive roots spread across the forest floor, some as thick as a man's thigh, others delicate as fingers, and there, just visible among the greenery, one root seemed to glow faintly from within, the same golden light that had filled their tree sanctuary. There, Noah pointed. That's our path. They began to follow the glowing root, pushing through the dense undergrowth as quietly as possible. The forest around them teemed with life, birds calling in complex melodies overhead, small creatures rustling in the undergrowth, insects humming in the dappled light. Yet for all this activity, Noah noted something strange. Nothing fled from their approach. Rather than scattering in fear as humans passed, the wildlife simply paused to observe them before returning to its business. It's as if they don't see us as a threat, Grace observed, noticing the same phenomenon. Or they recognize us, Noah suggested, because of Lily. The glowing root led them on a winding path through the ancient forest for what felt like hours. Occasionally, it would dive deep underground, only to re-emerge dozens of yards later. At these junctures, other roots would take up the golden glow, ensuring they never lost their way. Just as Noah was beginning to wonder if they were traveling in circles, the eternal twilight beneath the canopy making it impossible to judge the sun's position, the character of the forest began to change. The massive conifers gave way to younger, more diverse growth. Breaks in the canopy allowed stronger shafts of sunlight to penetrate. The ferns thinned, replaced by flowering undergrowth and berry bushes, and then, abruptly, they found themselves at the edge of a clearing. A perfectly circular meadow, perhaps 100 yards across, filled with wildflowers and ringed by trees of every description. At the center stood a single structure, a cabin built of logs darkened with age, its roof covered in moss and small saplings, as if the forest were slowly reclaiming it. The glowing root led directly to the cabin's door. Noah and Grace exchanged uncertain glances. "Do we just knock?" Grace asked. Before Noah could respond, Lily stirred in Grace's arms, her eyes fluttering open. Immediately, she oriented toward the cabin, pointing with a determined finger and uttering an insistent, "Ah!" her way of indicating something she wanted. "I guess that's our answer," Noah said. Still, caution made him survey the clearing thoroughly before stepping out from the protective cover of the trees. The meadow appeared empty of threats. No signs of Dr. Vega and her team, no evidence of other human presence at all. They crossed the open space quickly, wildflowers brushing against their legs, bees and butterflies rising in gentle clouds as they passed. The cabin grew more intriguing with each step closer. Noah could now see that small plants grew from crevices in the logs, and what he had taken for decorative carvings around the door and windows were actually intricate patterns of living vines. At the door, Noah hesitated once more, then knocked firmly. No response came from within. After waiting a respectful interval, he tried the handle. The door swung open easily, the hinges silent despite their apparent age. The interior was a single large room filled with dappled light from many small windows. It appeared to be some combination of dwelling and workshop. A simple bed occupied one corner, a wood stove another. The remaining space was dominated by a large work table covered with dried plants, stones, carved wooden objects, and dozens of small glass bottles containing liquids of various colors. Shelves lined the walls, packed with books, bundles of dried herbs, and containers labeled in a flowing script none of them recognized. The air smelled of cedar, sage, and something sweeter that Noah couldn't identify. "Hello?" Grace called softly. "Is anyone here?" No human voice answered, But a rustling from the rafters drew their attention upward. A raven perched on a beam, its glossy black feathers catching the light. It regarded them with uncommon intelligence in its obsidian eyes, head tilting as if in assessment. Lily immediately reached toward the bird, making the grasping motion that was her way of expressing desire. The raven responded with a soft, throaty croak and spread its wings, gliding down to land on the back of a chair near the work table. "I believe you've been expected," came a voice from behind them. All three Harpers spun around. In the doorway stood a woman, though woman seemed too simple a word for the being before them. She was tall and willowy, her skin the deep brown of rich earth, lined with age yet somehow ageless. Her hair fell in a waterfall of white braids adorned with feathers, beads, and tiny animal bones. She wore a simple dress of undyed linen over leggings and soft boots, with a necklace of unusual stones around her throat. But it was her eyes that commanded attention, a luminous amber gold that exactly matched the glow they had seen in Lily's eyes and in the guiding root. The stranger's gaze moved directly to Lily, and her weathered face softened into a smile. "So," she said, her voice like water over stones, "the forest has chosen again." Lily responded with an eager babble of sounds, reaching toward the woman with uncharacteristic boldness. Usually shy with strangers, the baby seemed to recognize something in this mysterious figure. "Who are you?" Noah asked, instinctively stepping slightly in front of his family. "What is this place?" The woman moved past them with the fluid grace of someone half her apparent age. She went to the raven, stroking its sleek head with one finger. "I am Nia," she said simply. "I have been called many things over the years: witch, healer, madwoman, guardian. What I am called matters less than what I do." She turned back to them, her golden eyes intense. "And what I do is protect the forest and its chosen ones." "Like Lily," Grace said, not a question. Nia nodded. "Like your daughter, yes, though it has been many years since one so young was called." She gestured to the chairs around the table. "Please, sit. You've had a long journey and we have much to discuss." They settled around the table, Noah examining their mysterious host while she busied herself preparing a fragrant tea at the wood stove. Though elderly, Nia moved with the surety of someone deeply comfortable in her space and her body. Each gesture was economical, practiced, as if performed thousands of times before. "The people hunting you will not find this place," she said without turning around. "This clearing exists in what you might call a fold in the forest, accessible only to those the trees themselves choose to admit." "Like the oak that sheltered us," Noah said. "Precisely. The oldest trees remember when all forests were one great wood. In certain places, that connection remains strong enough to create passages." She returned to the table with steaming mugs of amber liquid, setting them before Noah and Grace. "For your weariness," she explained. "It will not harm the child if you are nursing," she added to Grace. Grace sniffed the tea cautiously. It smelled of honey and pine, with something sharper beneath. "You know why we're here?" she asked. "I know why you were sent," Nia replied, taking her own seat. The raven hopped from the chair back to her shoulder, nuzzling against her braids. "The forest recognized the danger to its heart, to your daughter, and guided you to safety, to me." She reached out suddenly, her fingers stopping just short of touching Lily's cheek. "May I?" After a moment's hesitation, Grace nodded. Nia's weathered hand gently cupped Lily's face. The baby stared back at her solemnly, unusually still. Then, to Noah and Grace's astonishment, Lily's eyes began to glow with that now familiar golden light, and Nia's eyes brightened in response, The two locked in some silent communion. After several seconds, Naya withdrew her hand, releasing a slow breath. "So bright," she murmured. "So open. The connection is very strong with this one." "Daniel Redfeather told us that's dangerous," Noah said, watching Lily's eyes return to normal. "He said each time she uses her gift, it takes from her life." A shadow crossed Nia's face. "Daniel speaks from his family's experience. His great-grandfather was one of the forest's chosen, and indeed, he burned his life quickly in service to the trees." She sighed deeply. "But it need not always be so. With proper training, with understanding of the balance required, one can carry the forest's heart for many years." "Training?" Grace leaned forward eagerly. "You can teach her to use her gift safely?" Nia nodded slowly. "That is why you were brought to me. I have guided others before her, though not for some time now." A look of ancient sadness passed over her features. "The world has grown louder, harsher. Fewer children are born with the ability to hear the forest's voice. Those who are—" She gestured to Lily. "They are precious beyond measure." "These people looking for her," Noah began, sipping the tea and finding it surprisingly refreshing. "The Horizon Institute. What do they want with her?" Naya's face hardened. "They seek to understand the power they sense in the natural world, to quantify it, harness it, control it. They cloak their ambitions in scientific language, biodiversity, conservation, ecological balance, but their true goal is domination." Her golden eyes flashed. "They have been hunting the forest's chosen ones for generations, under different names, different guises, always claiming to serve knowledge, progress, always destroying what they claim to study." "How do you know all this?" Grace asked. "Because they hunted me once," Naya replied simply. "Long ago, when I was first called by the trees, I escaped, as others did not." She stroked the raven's glossy feathers. "They do not know my face now. Time has changed me beyond their recognition. But I have watched them, learned their methods, their weaknesses." Lily was growing restless in Grace's lap, her small hands reaching for the colorful items scattered across the table. Naya smiled and selected a smooth river stone with a natural hole through its center, offering it to the baby. Lily took it with delight, turning it over in her hands, examining it from every angle with the intense focus peculiar to toddlers. "The stone will help her," Naya explained. "It is from the river that feeds the forest's heart, a focal point for her energy. It will prevent the unintentional discharge of her gift while she learns control." Noah watched his daughter playing happily with the simple stone. "So, what happens now?" "We can't hide forever. We have a life, a home." "A home that is no longer safe," Naya interrupted gently. "The Horizon Institute knows where you live. They will have questions for neighbors, for friends, for anyone who might have witnessed your daughter's abilities. They are very thorough." "Are you suggesting we stay here?" Grace asked, looking around the small cabin. "For a time, yes. This place exists protected by the oldest magic of the forest. Here, I can begin to teach your daughter how to carry her gift without being consumed by it." She leaned forward, her golden eyes intense. "But eventually you must make a choice. The forest needs its chosen ones not hidden away, but active in the world, maintaining the balance between human and wild. That is why the gift manifests in human children, not in the creatures of the wood themselves." A heavy silence fell as Noah and Grace absorbed the implications of her words. Their entire life had been uprooted in the space of 2 days. The future they had planned, quiet, simple, close to nature but ultimately ordinary, was no longer possible. "Can we have some time to think?" Noah asked finally. "This is a lot to process." Naya nodded, rising from her chair with that same fluid grace. "Of course. Rest now. The forest has provided for your immediate safety. Decisions can wait until you have regained your strength." She moved to the door. "I have preparations to make. The protective circle around this clearing must be reinforced now that you are here. The food is there." She gestured to a small pantry beside the wood stove. "And the spring behind the cabin provides clean water. Make yourselves at home." With that, she slipped out the door, the raven still perched on her shoulder. Through the window, they watched her stride across the meadow, wildflowers seeming to bend toward her as she passed. "What do you think?" Grace asked softly when she had disappeared into the trees. Noah ran a hand through his hair, sighing deeply. "I think we don't have much choice. If what she and Daniel said about these Horizon people is true, we can't go back, not yet anyway." Grace nodded, watching as Lily continued to play with the stone, utterly content despite the chaos that had enveloped her small life. "She does seem to know what she's talking about, and Lily trusts her. I noticed that too," Noah agreed. "It's like they already know each other somehow." The conversation might have continued, but a soft sound from outside caught their attention. Noah moved to the window cautiously, then relaxed. "It's just a deer," he said. "A whole group of them, actually." Grace joined him, Lily in her arms. Through the glass they could see a small herd of deer entering the clearing, does and fawns moving with unusual boldness into the open space. They began to graze peacefully among the wildflowers, apparently untroubled by the human presence they must surely sense in the cabin. As they watched, other wildlife appeared: rabbits, squirrels, a fox that seemed remarkably unconcerned with the prey animals nearby. Birds descended to perch on the cabin's roof and on branches overhanging the meadow. A family of raccoons waddled from the forest edge, their masked faces turned expectantly toward the cabin. "It's like a Disney movie out there," Noah said with nervous laughter. "Why are they all gathering?" Lily answered his question with sudden animation, pointing excitedly at the animals and babbling a stream of sounds that were not quite words but conveyed unmistakable joy. The stone in her hand began to glow faintly with the now familiar golden light, and in response, a subtle luminescence seemed to spread through the meadow, connecting each animal with threads of soft radiance. "She's calling them," Grace realized aloud. "Or they're calling her, I can't tell which." Noah felt a chill run down his spine, not of fear, but of awe. "She's so small," he whispered. "How can she contain all this whatever it is?" "Perhaps that's why the chosen ones are always children," came Nia's voice from behind them. She had returned silently, now standing in the doorway. "Their spirits are not yet closed by doubt, by learned limitations. They see the world as it truly is, connected, alive in ways adults have forgotten how to perceive." She moved to stand beside them at the window. Outside, the gathering of animals continued to grow, creating a scene of impossible harmony. Predator and prey stood side by side, united by the golden light that emanated from Lily's stone and spread throughout the clearing. "What you're seeing," Naya continued softly, "is the true work of the forest's heart. Not just healing wounded cubs or making plants grow, though those are aspects of it. The deepest magic is this: the restoration of balance, of right relationship. Your daughter is a bridge between worlds that have grown too separate." Lily squirmed in Grace's arms, clearly wanting to join the animals outside. Grace tightened her hold instinctively, maternal protection warring with the obvious safety of the scene before them. "She will not be harmed," Nia assured her. Not here, not by these creatures. They recognize her for what she is. After a moment's hesitation, Grace nodded. Let's all go out. I'm not letting her go alone. They stepped outside together into the golden afternoon light. As they emerged from the cabin, the assembled wildlife turned as one to observe them. Hundreds of eyes reflecting the same sense of expectation. Lily wriggled insistently until Grace carefully set her down on the grass. For a moment, the baby just sat there, looking around with bright-eyed wonder at the gathered creatures. Then, with more coordination than she had ever shown before, she pushed herself to her feet and stood steadily. A collective hush fell over the meadow. Even the birds ceased their calling. The only sound was the gentle rustling of leaves in the canopy above. Lily took one step forward, then another. The stone in her hand pulsed with golden light in rhythm with her heartbeat. She toddled toward the nearest deer, a doe with a young fawn at her side, moving with surprising confidence for a child who had only been walking a few weeks. Noah and Grace started to follow, but Nia's hand on their arms stopped them. Let her go, the older woman said. This is important. They watched, hearts in their throats, as their baby daughter approached the wild deer. The doe lowered her head as Lily drew near, not in threat, but in greeting. When they were just inches apart, Lily reached out the hand holding the river stone and placed it gently on the deer's nose. The connection was immediate and visible. The golden light flowed from Lily through the deer, then spread in rippling waves through every creature in the clearing. For a moment, every living thing was outlined in soft gold: plants, animals, insects, even the 3 humans watching from the cabin door. What's happening? Grace whispered, tears streaming down her face, though she couldn't have explained why she was crying. She is being recognized, Nia replied, her own golden eyes bright with reflected light. The forest is acknowledging its chosen one. As suddenly as it had begun, the light faded. Lily stood for a moment longer, her small hand still resting on the deer's muzzle. Then, with the typical unpredictability of toddlers, she plopped down on her bottom in the grass and laughed delightedly, the magical moment giving way to simple, childish joy. The spell broken, the wildlife began to disperse, not fleeing, but simply returning to their usual activities, melting back into the forest with unhurried dignity. The deer nuzzled Lily's hair once before turning away, leading her fawn toward the shade at the clearing's edge. Grace rushed forward to scoop up her daughter, holding her close. "Did you see that?" she asked Noah, her voice trembling with emotion. "Did you see what she did?" Noah nodded, unable to form words past the lump in his throat. He had seen it, seen his child at the center of a web of light that touched and transformed every living thing in the clearing. Nothing in his life had prepared him for this moment, for the profound realization that his daughter was something more than simply human. Nia watched them with understanding in her ancient eyes. "Now you begin to see," she said. "Now you begin to understand why the Horizon Institute hunts her so determinedly. Imagine such power harnessed, controlled, weaponized." The thought was like ice water on their wonder. Noah drew his family close, suddenly aware again of the danger that had driven them into the forest's depths. "How do we protect her?" he asked Nia. "How do we keep her safe while she learns to use this gift?" The older woman's face grew solemn. "That is the question we must answer together. But first," she gestured to the western sky, where the sun was beginning its descent. "Evening approaches. You need proper rest, not the timeless sleep of the oak's heart. Tomorrow we begin your daughter's training and yours." "Ours?" Grace questioned. "Of course," Nia replied with a small smile. The forest chose your child, but it is no accident that you are her parents. You too have roles to play in what is to come. As they returned to the cabin, the setting sun cast long shadows across the clearing. In the deepening twilight, the meadow took on an otherworldly quality, neither fully of the human world nor completely wild, but somewhere in between. A boundary place, Naya had called it. A fold in the forest. And as darkness fell completely, bringing out a brilliant canopy of stars overhead, Noah thought he could see faint golden threads running through the night itself, connecting earth and sky, tree and star, binding all things in a web of light that had always existed, invisible until his daughter's gift had allowed him to perceive it. That night, as they settled into sleep on blankets Naya provided, Lily nestled between them. Noah dreamed of roots and branches stretching across vast distances, carrying whispered messages from tree to tree. He dreamed of ancient agreements between human and forest, promises made and broken and renewed across centuries. He dreamed of his daughter at the center of it all, tiny, human, magical, vulnerable,